Are you on the edge of your seat? Because we're about to sound off with Kevin Williams, covering today's latest trends in location-based entertainment. Brought to you by the LBX Collective, your community to connect, engage, and inspire. All right, everyone, let's buckle up.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to Sound Off number 58, and we are recording from EAG Expo in Excel, London. So really excited to have this thing going on here.
Well, it's nice to be able to do it in person for a change, no matter how good the technology is.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we don't have our standard little meme slide.
No.
But do we have a meme this time? You know, I know we've been walking around. It's been tough to...
but it's been tough to put it together. The meme is, do we need a meme, I think would be what I would go for. The trends and what we're seeing on the show, I think, will speak for themselves this time around.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so given that, let's dive right in. What have you seen on the show floor that has got you thinking?
So for those that are maybe new to what's going on here, the first show of the year for the amusement trade is the European show taking place in London. Funny enough, called the London show by many, but EAG is the coverall. And this year it went a little bit differently because EAG decided to add two co-located events to the operation. They added a London casino event, obviously with gaming and casino machines, and it added a competitive socializing and XR event called the Social Immersive Entertainment Expo. And for transparency, I was taken on board to be an ambassador for that event. And so I've been both helping the sales team present to certain companies the opportunity that this brings to the table, as well as arranging a conference, or should I say seminar session, that Brandon, you were able to actually help with.
Yeah, it was fun. In fact, I got a chance to talk with Justin from Sega, who happens to be the banner that we're clearly advertising for behind us. Apparently. So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the payment from them for that.
Yeah, exactly.
So fundamentally, the competitive socializing and XR side is trying to give a nod to the explosion of social entertainment in the sector and how much that makes an important part of the business, as well as for an opportunity for the traditional amusement trade to actually understand the fundamentals. And one of the things that Brandon and Justin from Sega were thrown in the deep end. I am renowned for being a naughty moderator when it comes to certain sessions, not giving a lot of information so we get an honest opinion from our speakers. But it was just to ask the key question of, is the amusement industry on borrowed time, or is the amusement industry going to have to mutate and pivot to support competitive socializing?
Yeah, and I think I don't know if it was a consensus, given Justin's background, but at least from my perspective, I don't think that amusements are on borrowed time if they evolve to meet the changing landscape of competitive socializing and the needs and the desires for the consumers and guests of these venues to have group play and to be able to compete and be able to spectate and do all those things while using amusement machines. And they have the ability to do that now with these social days and the different social elements that we have now in these types of venues. But amusements are now beginning to slowly trickle in, but it really is going to have to evolve. You can't put in a standard skee ball into a flight club and expect to have the same types of results as a skee ball would in a family entertainment center, for example.
Well, the interesting thing I think we took away is that we're already seeing a single entertainment offering competitive socializing now parachuting in some level of secondary spend with amusement. The best example just down the road from where we're recording this is our friends at Swingers, who have now added Carnival to their mini golf experience, which are really reskinned redemption machines. And Justin from Sega was able to give us a little bit of transparency into the process in which the Swingers guys came to them with the suggestion. The machines were selected that would be best fitting the competitive socializing environment and the audience that they're targeting, parachuted in, reskinned, and doing very well. Some interesting elements to that argument, of course, is that where the mini golf systems in these facilities will stay for many months, many over year installations, the amusement pieces are going to have to be swapped out at least every 9 months to keep them fresh. And so this is definitely a brand new business opportunity for the amusement trade. The other toss of the coin, really, that we had at the show was that in embracing competitive socializing, there is the argument about how many amusement sites are going to have to pivot to incorporate a competitive socializing element to them. And that proved very interesting. One of the other trends we have here is really the reality of virtual reality. The trade is now at a very hard-nosed point in the sector. Developers who thought that they could get away with just throwing any old virtual reality experience into the amusement market and into the FEC market are now finding it a very choppy waters, very cold to them. And, here at the show, it's interesting that, of the amusement products, we only have 2 or 3 VR products. Raw Thrills, obviously, with their Godzilla. We have one Chinese manufacturer with their VR headset system. We have Sega with their what I like to call ride simulator VR experience, but using the gun mount system. But in the competitive socializing, we only have 3 VR companies: Vex, Hero Zone, and AN Developers, who are just showing arena-based VR rather than the more traditional. So where we would have seen at least 2 years ago or 3 years ago 6, 7, 8, 9 different VR products on the show floor, we've broken down to a much more realistic, smaller off-crop, and that is based on ROI. The industry doesn't like the hype anymore. They want to see the money in their cash box, and that's what is really shaping us. The final trend for me, with my video game and my interactive entertainment hat on, has been the resurgence of the Chinese manufacturers here. In particular, I am using the barometer of one product line. And there's a product line which Adam has touched on many times, and I have touched on many times, which is the environmental cabinet. That is the cabinet that has a motion seat, usually bench motion seat, 2 people sitting down and using either a mounted gun or a tracked gun game kind of experience. House of the Dead would be the ubiquitous example of that. And here at the show, we have a number of examples of environmental style systems. Motion seat, 2-player enclosure. Sega has it with their VR experience. Obviously, Raw Thrills has it with their Godzilla experience. Those are the VR examples. But then we also have examples from Bandai Namco with their Goldstorm Pirates and the Storm Shadow product from Ace Amusement. That's been using a different couple of names I've seen. And those really are, I sat down and played all the way through Goldstorm Pirates because, Bandai Namco do a really good shooting experience when they put their mind to it. It was a great game, lots of repeatability, fantastic. And then I went away and played the Chinese equivalent from Ace Amusement. And Ace Amusement are no slouch anymore. They've really upped their game regarding the quality and the depth for the Western audience that they make. And they offer quite a comparable dead pirate, skeletal blaster, occasional sea monster game experience. Very similar in play, though I would argue that on the graphics side, the Bandai Namco product pipped it, as well as having physical effects. The Bandai Namco Goldstorm actually had wind effects as well as seat motion effects. But from an operator's point of view, he's going to be looking at the price difference. He can go away and take the Ace Amusement product, or he can take the Bandai Namco product, and there is quite a considerable price differential between the two of them. And I would argue the price differential is quite considerable to warrant you actually thinking, is the the game additional bells and whistles that I've outlined really worth it. And we've seen that a number of times here at the show. We have a number of driving games, motorbike games, the Chinese equivalent next door to the American developed equivalent. So from a Western purchaser at this moment in time, before April, they have to make some hard decisions whether they go Chinese or whether they go local or whether they go Western. And then that brings us kind of to the ticking time bomb in the background of how will the financial situations of a new administration in North America and the financial conditions internationally impact that price differential? Will the separation between how much a Gold Storm pirate costs compared to the Ace amusement equivalent be so much so that you have to make a decision? Or could it flip the other way, where suddenly, because of tariffs, the Chinese-made system can't compete in the same price pot with the American-made alternative? Do you have any views on that, Brad?
Well, I don't want to put any views out there regarding tariffs,
of course.
because who knows? We don't know what the incoming president's going to be doing, because he's volatile, so you don't really know what's going on at any given moment, what his policies he's actually going to put in place versus what he says.
What actually happens compared to what's been speculated.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the things that is a consideration, if you have one that, even if they were the same price, but one has all the extra bells and whistles, the wind and the heat and everything else, they're also, anytime you add extra bells and whistles like that, there's going to be increased maintenance costs that you also have to consider as well. Like there are more things that could break down, more opportunities for that machine to be sitting on the floor unused. And so those are also considerations that come into play. Even if it creates a more interesting experience, will the consumer really know whether or not you had wind and heat versus a device that didn't have wind and heat if they never sat side by side and tried them both?
It's will they ever get the chance to do the comparison? To be honest, no, most of them won't. Your Joe average visitor to the amusement site. There is also the operator perception, which as a consultant, I just have to ram home to operators when they say they have a bargain, they've found a cheaper system. Is that a false economy of scale? Is it that they may have a cheaper system, but it will take longer for spare parts and servicing and software updates to be made available, and they could be left with a lemon that they can't get rid of?
Yeah, non-standard parts, non-standard toolkits to be able to make the upgrades or updates or make changes for repairs.
It's how most distributors defend the additional percentage that they add onto the price of the machines that they represent, because they are giving you access to support, repair, and upgrade, and in some cases lease back. But at this moment in time in the UK market and the European market, the operators are looking at value for money, popularity, and repeatability, the ability for the audience to be compelled to come back again and again. So jumping off of the show floor for one of the other observations of trends, and that is we're in the heart of competitive socializing land. London is a crucible for the development of social entertainment venues. Some of the first competitive socializing venues started their life here in the UK and have now gone on to be opened in North America and internationally. So we had a chance last night to pop in to a couple of facilities very close to where we're sitting, half a mile from where we are right now in the show. It's interesting that this locality, this particular exhibition facility, is on a peninsula close to London Airport and the London City Airport, not Heathrow or Gatwick. And this land is being developed into its own competitive socializing environment. A F1 experience is being put in, an Elvis experience, which isn't really competitive socializing, but it is immersive.
Yeah, they're calling this area immersive London. Right?
Correct.
So you have the Friends immersive experience as well, which I know you're super excited about.
Oh yes, I can't hold it back. But from point of view of Canary Wharf, which is half a mile from here, we had a cluster of competitive socializing venues, and very important ones. They are influencers. We had a chance to look at Electric Shuffle that's there, Plays, the shotgun, play pigeon shooting one, and fair games. It was not really a big comparison of which one won for us as the most compelling of the experiences.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it depends on how you define, how you personally define compelling.
Yeah.
I thought each one was super interesting.
Yes.
I think overall, the Electric Shuffle probably had the best overall theming and package, cocktail to gaming experience, etc. packaged together. And I
Yes.
would agree there. Although at the same time, I love clay shooting, I love bird hunting, and so clays I thought was done pretty well. There's just changes that we all agreed we'd make. But you know what? Fair Games was, I think, would have been a total blast, and would have had a lot of fun playing the midway games. And I thought it was a completely unique concept that I haven't seen anywhere, and really, frankly, shocked that is the only location that is open. I would have expected this to be something that had multiple locations throughout the UK at least, at a minimum.
It's surprising why we only have one Fair Games at the moment, especially considering that it's been open over 3 years now. The argument is that the developers behind it are refining the concept, and that they will be making an announcement soon about their next site. But in the face of 7 or 8 electric shuffles, 3 or 4 plays, not to count all of the other chains out there, you would think that there must be more reasons why this one hasn't rolled out much faster. And to be blunt, one of the problems I have with Fair Games is that its pricing model is not the most intuitive known to man. It is a time to play. You're given a set amount of time, paying your £17 for the experience, and then at the end of the 75 minutes, you then are thrown casually out of the facility, or you go back to one of the machines and upgrade. It is eat as much as you can during a set period of time.
I would say, but it's not all you can eat. They do pay for the food, they pay for the drinks, they pay for all of that. So
yes.
But it is play as much as you can.
Play as much as you can in a given time.
Yeah. Although that was the other thing too. You only had the ability to play each game twice.
Yeah.
And I think there was 8 or 10 games in total, so 8 games. And depending on the size of your group, you go around and play twice. You definitely will do that within your 75 minutes or less, frankly. And so I think it struck me as either two things. One, too inexpensive. They should have charged more for the actual experience, because it is an experience whether or not you do get your food or your drink there. And then they should make it a little bit more open-ended instead of booking very specific time slots.
Yeah, I'd cheat. I would go for the pay-to-play model rather than the pay-to-stay model.
Yeah.
And I would limit per visit how many, or per activation, how many games you can pay to play on. So the individual feels that they get value for money, that they are playing all the games, and they may have a unit saved on their card that they can use as on a repeat visitation. But also, I don't like putting a gun to people's heads regarding time. It takes away from the relaxation and the social inclusion.
Now, like let's say there's a group of 8 and they're moving around slowly, and you want to try to get around, you're on a date or whatever, and you're seeing the fact that you still have 4 games left and you only have 20 minutes left now because maybe you spent too much of your time waiting in line for a drink or a cotton candy or something. And it creates an unnecessary stressful environment.
Sadly, the developers behind the project, I think, were focused more on the food and the drink and the ambience of the themality rather than getting into the nitty-gritty of the minutiae of the entertainment. But once we see the next rollout of this operation, I'm sure we'll see some more changes. We have some more venues to visit, and we can touch upon that in the next sound-off, which ones we are going to next.
We did get a chance to walk into a Sandbox VR.
Of course.
We got to watch the robots mix us a
Tony.
couple of drinks. Tony the robots. Is it Tony's? Because there's 2 arms?
Yeah.
Does Tony the robot have 2 arms?
Good question. We didn't ask.
We didn't ask that. All right. Well, anyway, that was it was a fun experience. The drinks were actually reasonable.
Yes.
From a cost and
the robot can make a good drink.
Yes. exactly.
The problem, well, it's not a problem. I've been to Sandbox VR before at the opening of that particular London venue. That is one of the first of the franchise venues rather than the self-owned, self-operated Sandbox VR. Has the selection of games, it has the tracked VR experience, and it is what it is. It is a showing its age based on the technology. Free roam VR games center. For me, I can't see the drawing power for the. One of the phrases that we've been using a lot with people when we're discussing competitive socializing is the avoidance of the one and done. You don't want your venue to be somewhere where people go once and never come again because they've done it and they've seen it. So the problem with fair games is it is actually forcing the visitors to be a one and done. You're forcing them to try all of the games within a set period of time, and then you're throwing them out bodily because the time is up, 75 minutes is up. Where really competitive socializing should be you go again and again because the group enjoyed the game experience. Something that Flight Club works very hard at, trying to create a experience where you want to come back with more friends and do it again. I would argue that Clays works on that. There is a very strong competitive elements to that. There's a gamification of the clay pigeon shooting experience, where Sandbox VR feels like you're experiencing, one of their 8 different game environments. Some of them sponsor or based on Netflix stream service experiences, but at the end of the day, it's a one and done. I was interested to when we were visiting the number of people that were celebrating birthday parties while we were there.
I was just gonna say that I think probably 40%. I think there were 5 groups that were there when the time we were there, and at least 2 of the groups were celebrating birthdays. And so that makes me then think: is this something that either is exclusive? I don't want to say exclusively, clearly, because it wasn't. Right, there were 3 other groups that were there just for enjoyment. But is it something that is so either expensive or unique that people only think about doing it for a special event versus just as a casual outing with friends? And I will say, at least they have 8 experiences. And so if you really did enjoy it, and you did Squid Game, for example, and you wanted to go back and do Rebel Moon or one of their own custom things, there is some repeatability from a content perspective. Is the experience good enough, and I would say unencumbered enough, for them to feel like they get value for their money to come back and do it more frequently? That I don't know, because we were even talking about how much onboarding and offboarding there is with regards to this Gen 1. I guess I'll call it Gen 1, even though it's not Gen 1, but it seems like Gen 1 free roaming experience. Multiple strap things on your arms and your ankles and on your things and everywhere else. So I think there's a lot of streamlining that could happen to make that a much more pleasant experience.
Yeah, they're going to have to think about what their next gen onboarding process is going to be, how they're going to work with the headset that they decide upon, and then fundamentally how they're doing the game. Because one of those elements that generates repeat visitation is scoring and high scores and competitive natures. Something I liked when we were in Electric Shuffle is that you can actually see scores being generated between the different venues around the world that they have operational. We could see that the New York venue compared to the Leeds venue was scoring less or more. Where really with the Sandbox VR experience, the high score isn't really that promoted. The takeaway isn't, oh wow, you achieved a mega high score, or you're on the leaderboard at the top, or anything like that. It's just more you got through the game experience, and you may have found a couple of the Easter eggs that are hidden around the game. But again, these are the elements that most of these developers are going to have to learn the hard way to be able to survive in the shark-infested waters that now surround social entertainment, but also VR location-based. And the interesting thing about Sandbox VR's London location compared to the majority of Sandbox venues is that it has a cocktail drink capability, courtesy of the robot. And it is part of the factor in pivoting Sandbox VR to think more about franchise and more about encouraging franchisors to add an F&B element to their experience, A, for the dwell time, and B, for the secondary revenue generation.
Yeah, you mentioned takeaways, and I did feel like Sandbox VR was really the only one of at least the competitive venues we visited last night that actually had a decent takeaway.
Yes.
A video that they compiled that I thought was really well done.
Very good.
It was probably AI compiled at least. And so, but the others, while they might have some action shots or stuff, but there was no photo booths, there was no group picture at the end, or anything that's done to provide a takeaway or something that you can then create as a shareable item on social media as well. So I think those are definitely some areas, massively missed opportunities.
And also adds to the one and done, because if you're not giving them a takeaway, there's no way for them to promote that they had a good time to their friends that weren't there, because if their friends that weren't there didn't get to see it, then they don't know that they've missed out on something. There's the whole gambit of, if you're not going to give a takeaway to your facility, the most important part of a guest visit, the most memorable elements of a guest visit to your facility is when they walk through the door and when they walk out of the door at the end. And if you can't capture a memory as they're walking out of the venue by giving them a takeaway, then you're missing out totally.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that from a physical takeaway, Fair Games did have their bears. They're actually the branded bears, little patch over the eye, and
their mascot.
Their mascot. I don't think that they were guaranteed to win one, but when it looked like the fact that I wouldn't be surprised if you end up from one of the 8 games at least winning either a keychain or a larger, bigger or smaller bear. So I think there's if they're doing it, if they're smart about it, although margins being what they are, probably somebody's walking away at least with some element of the mascot as a way to remember.
Yeah, some level of merch that will hopefully be memorable. Even there, I would have preferred if they had customized that element to the individual, or had taken a photograph when you hand them the teddy bear, that they feel that they have an engagement and had an engagement with the experience they were having. But these are all lessons that are going to have to be learned the hard way. The other, as we touched upon earlier, a lot of these venues now were adamant that they didn't need a secondary entertainment element. Now they're learning that they do, and they're parachuting in amusement machines. Many of them, I think, are oblivious to the high score and the takeaway at the end. Now that they'll avidly watch our podcast, but seriously, now that they see the revenue that they're generating from their business, they will understand secondary and tertiary spend is essential. And I suppose, really to wind up this fantastic visit to the UK and EAG, is that we're seeing an industry in transition. For all of you that listen to the sound offs, you've been seeing me rolling off a long list of new venues, a lot of them in the UK, a lot of them in the US, a lot of them internationally, UAE and such, like India. It was interesting that during our conference session, there was actually an investor listening into the conferences who's actually working on starting up a brand new competitive socializing chain in India, in Mumbai. So some international visitors have traveled a long way to try and gather the best information on how to enter that market. But the issue still seems to be, at the moment, with a great explosion of opening of new venues, there is a hunger for new machines, but also there will be a contraction at some point. And a lot of the people are talking on the show floor here about how the industry will readdress itself, normalize itself to the changed market structure. The other nice thing about all of these openings is that they need to be fed with new machines. So literally, most of these sites in 9 months or even 10 months' time will have to think about quite considerable reinvestments in their facility to keep them fresh and to stay competitive with the other venues that may have opened up in the meantime around them. So far from the amusement industry being in a difficult position, it is in a position where it may have a little bit too much success and needs to restructure itself to be able to deal with the next few months of business going forward. But anyway, from our point of view, this is the first show the first amusement show of the new year. I think it's got off to a very good start. The question is now we have to wait till, well, from your point of view, you have the IALPA FEC Summit coming next. But for me, the next big show will be Amusement Expo in March. And it will be interesting to see how much the industry has pivoted and changed over that period.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Kevin, it's been a pleasure
Always
hanging out here in London with you and getting to see your old stopping ground. So had some of the best fish and chips of my life last night. So I appreciate that.
my pleasure.
Well, everybody, this has been another Sound Off with Kevin Williams. Stay tuned and keep kicking ass.